being able to make sure that you guys are, especially you, our students, that we want to make sure that they're excited about the future, because technology is changing, right? Things are changing. Everything is changing every day. And now that we're in a COVID situation, things are even more. People want to be more hands-on with technical skills, because people are working from home remotely. When you have the technical skills, you could pretty much work in any industry, any place, as long as you got some technical skills. So I leave to both of you, Prantav and Nate. Let's get started. Let's pick up from where we left off last time, right?
Well, last time I was using TeamViewer and Python at the same time. So do you want me to start up TeamViewer?
If you can, sure.
Okay. Search files. TeamViewer.
Hey, Prantav, are you using Fox now? Firefox?
No, I'm back on Chrome, but I was able to resolve the issue. What happened was that it removed my mic from the storage, like detection. So it was just not detecting my mic, and because it wasn't detecting my mic, it wasn't letting me in.
I put my ID in the chat.
You also need to put in the password.
Oh, the password? Oh, there. Okay. That's the ID and password.
Okay. Now you need to turn off the mic and the speaker in the TeamViewer.
Okay.
You'll be able to see it in the bottom right. When you, that's video. Perfect.
Okay. Can you like tap on the turn off mic for me, maybe? Will that work?
Actually, I cannot. I won't be able to see it from my end, but I can direct you at the bottom right. You see the audio tab, right?
Yeah, I clicked audio muted.
Okay, perfect. So now the echo won't be there. Let's do one more thing today before we start.
Okay.
We install Jupyter Notebook. Now that is something that will let us code with Python and allow you to take notes right in the notebook, so that you can just review the code. You can remember what you wrote last time, why you wrote it last time. So I'll teach you how to get started with it.
Also, why is the background black?
What's up?
Why is the background black?
Oh, that is because when I'm connected to you, when someone else is connected to you remotely, it automatically turns the background to black so that it doesn't have too much of strain on the internet. Otherwise, if there's a wallpaper, it has to send me all the colors to show me the wallpaper that you actually have.
Okay.
So turning the wallpaper automatically to black helps it reduce the internet usage. So you remember what we learned last time, right? It was strings.
Yeah.
And you remember how do we print something in Python?
We type in print,
Mm-hmm.
parentheses. We put in what we want. Then we put in the back parentheses. Then we press enter.
Perfect.
Oh, so I have a question.
Go ahead.
How'd you make that game?
I wrote a Python code. I'll show you.
Okay. Because I didn't. Also, did you have to manually type in all the numbers that it could be?
Sorry?
Did you have to manually type in all the numbers that it could be?
No. It was all by code, and it was the numbers. It just gets a number, takes a number randomly, picks a number, just like we do. So if I were to tell you that think of a number between 1 to 10, how would you pick a number? Just randomly, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Just like that, the Python code can do that as well. All I need to tell it is the starting number and the ending number. So if I tell it to guess a number between 10 to 20, it will pick a number randomly. I'll show that to you today.
Okay.
We'll go through that code as well. But before that, we move a little further from strings and numbers to two new things in Python. That is going to be list and dictionary. So can you guess what list should store? What list is all about? So just like a regular list, what would you call a regular list? If I were to tell you make a list of all the things that need likes on a page, what would you do? You would start writing stuff that you like, right? So last time we saw that we stored your name in a variable called name. We stored your age in a variable called age. But basically what we were doing while this gets installed, I'll just walk you through it briefly. What we were actually doing was storing one value in one variable. The value was your name, which was Nate, or it can be any name. We were storing it in one variable. We were naming it name. We could have named it anything. We could have named it X. We could have named it Y. We could have named it cat, dog. Doesn't make any difference. Oh, well, this is taking long. Oh, here's the game, right? Okay. So while this gets installed, let's just take a look at the game. So this is the code for the game. What we can do is we can just look at the code while looking at the game. See, what it says is, hey, I'm Jarvis, and what is your name? That is a simple print statement. Just like you printed your name, Nate, last time, this is the same thing. It's just printing, hey, I'm Jarvis, and what is your name? Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. What it does next, check this out. I have declared a variable called name, and then I wait for you to type something in. So basically what I want is an input from you. So I just told Python that I need an input. Whoever is using this game is going to type their name, and you just wait until they type it. So what the program does is waits for you to input something. Here you'll input your name. So you can just type in anything for now.
Okay.
Nate, right? And you press enter. And the moment you press enter, it starts printing other statements. These are simple print statements and nothing else. So just like you printed Nate, this prints the same sentence. Hey, it is very nice to meet you. Now let us play a game. But here, what I did was, after hey, I put your name. Whatever the user gets input, whatever the user names, that's the name that we show up with the sentence, the print set. And I'm getting some disturbance. So, no problem. Watch me, don't. Hey, sorry about that.
Okay, it's okay.
So I'm just printing statements out without doing anything else. All you see here, these are all print statements. Then what we do is, you have 10 chances, right? So we go into something called a loop here. Now, don't worry about it. I'll teach you what a loop is. We'll get there. But basically what it does is repeats whatever code that I've written here 10 times. Loop is used for repeating something without actually having to write that thing that number of times. If I was to tell you, write your name 5 times, you can write Nate, press enter. You can write Nate again and press enter. You can do the same thing for 5 times, or you can just loop. You can just tell Python that if I were to tell you 5 times, then you can just tell Python that 5 times. What are you going to do? You're going to write Nate. Now, by doing just this, these 2 lines, we'll write name or we'll write Nate 5 times. I won't run it here. I'll show it to you once this is all done. Oh, well, this is taking very, very long.
Are we going to that? Are we going to have him print his name 5 times?
Sorry, Dr. Ishaq. Dr. Ishaq, yes.
Okay. Can we share the screen? Because I don't see the screen.
Oh, okay.
What?
It all just went black, right? Okay. It just paused.
What just happened?
Now what I'm doing is, I'm just sharing your screen. Can you see it now?
Yes, I do. I just see the main screen, though. I don't see the actual window that you're showing. There you go.
Perfect. So the notebooks are still getting installed. Meanwhile, I'm just walking Nate through the code of the game. It's just a collection of simple statements, print statements. Now, every time it asks you to enter something, what it's actually doing is asking for an input from the user. And that is exactly how you wait. That is exactly how you code in Python. You just tell it that you need input, you write input, and then the Python just waits for the user to type something in. So now, when you type some number in, let's say you typed in 52, and you press enter, it came in here, it took the input as 52, and now it checks. If is 52 bigger than the number that it guessed, then it shows that nope, your guess is too high, guess again. If 52 is less than the number that it guessed, then it shows that your guess is too low, guess again. This is called an if statement. So if something is true, do this, otherwise do this, otherwise do this. If you want your computer to do something that way, based on conditions, based on something you tell it to, this is how you write it. You write it in an if and else statement. Let's say, instead of complicating stuff, we can just start coding for now. While this gets installed, we can always walk through it. There we go. You remember this, right? When you wanted to print your name, write a print, then you do parentheses, and then anything that you put in between the double quotes gets printed. So this was the print statement. This is how we stored the same thing into a variable. When you want to assign something to a variable, when you want Python to store something in its memory, you just write that variable's name on the left side, and you assign it a value by typing this equal sign, and then you just write anything that you need to store. So let's say we tell Python that store my name, and now Python knows that X is Nate. So however many times you type X, it will show Nate. Next, what we learned was storing your age. So it was 11. And we stored it, we told Python, store my age as well, and store it in a variable called y. So anything that is a variable is on the left side. Then we use the equal sign again to assign it the value, and then we actually write the value. So now Python knows two things. Python knows X and Y. So when you ask what is X, it shows that it's Nate. When you ask what is Y, it shows that it's 11. But we don't know. X and Y don't really help us. So if Python, if I wanted to ask Python, like, what have you stored in X, it will just tell you Nate, but it doesn't know that it's a name. So when you are reading the code and when you want to understand what you are doing, we start naming the variables properly so that when we read it again, we know that this is what we were trying to do. So instead of storing it in X, we store it in a variable called name. And now when we type name, it shows Nate. So now we know that Nate is a name. Just like that, we create a new variable and store the value 11 in it. And now when we type age, it shows 11, but we also know that 11 is age and not Nate's school number or roll number or login ID or anything else. So now moving forward from strings, numbers, now we go ahead and take a look at the list. So list in Python is, what should I do? Should I just share my screen? Mhm.
I think you are already. Oh yeah, maybe.
It's fine. So when we say list, Python doesn't understand. If I tell Python that store something in a list, it does not know what I'm trying to say. So I have to make Python understand that I want something stored in a list. So how does Python know what's a list? Python knows that something is a list when you mark it specifically with these square brackets. So a list can be denoted by these square brackets. Let's say I want to declare a variable called names, and I want it to be a list. So just like we enclose, we put the double quotes in front and end of the string. We have to put the square brackets in front and back of everything that we need to store in a list. So when I say names and do these square brackets, Python knows that names is a list. So now it is ready to store everything that you tell it to in a list format. So when now you start storing more than one thing, what we used to do here, in name, we just stored one value called Nate. Now there's this thing called names and it's a list. So what we'll do is we'll store more than just one value. So for now, let's type in Nate, and then Nate starts typing something else. How about you type a couple of names for me?
Okay.
Okay, we have Sean. Okay, hang on. So what we are going to do here, when we want different names, we store them in different double quotes, like this. You see how Nate and Sean are different? They both have double quotes in front and back of them. So when you want to store more than one values in a list, you separate them with comma and then store the value with double quotes. So now type one more name. Say you were typing Miley. So what you do is type in Miley, but just cover it with double quotes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What you can do is just go ahead and type in Miley.
Okay.
Or whatever you were typing, whatever the next name that you were going to type, but do it with double quotes. Perfect. So we stored one more name. You need the ending double quote as well. Oops. You pressed something else.
Press shift and double quote. Okay, I think I might have pressed enter when I was looking for the double quotes key. And I was like,
No problem.
right shift. Yeah, my finger went up.
That's why what we're doing here is installing this notebook. So when you press the wrong button, it won't mess up. All right, then you have to type the whole name again with the double quotes.
Isn't there like a go back feature? There should be a go back feature, shouldn't there?
Sorry, no.
Why not?
In this command line, it does not take you back to what you typed unless you press enter. When you press enter, it stores everything in its memory. Then it can show it back to you when you press the page up key and page down key. But until you have not pressed the enter key, it does not store anything in its memory.
Yeah.
So for now, we are going to have to type 2 more names with double quotes. So go ahead and type a name with double quotes.
Okay.
You forgot the double quotes. And now we have, yes, perfect. And now when we want to add one more name, we separate it by comma. And now we add one more name. Ending double quotes. And now let's say that these 3 are the only values that we want Python to remember. So when we want to end the list, no, that's the wrong bracket. We need the square bracket.
Where is the square?
There you go. You got it. And now you press enter. So now what you told Python is, hey, this is a list of names. These 3 are names. I want you to remember. So when I ask you, what did I store in you? You just return these 3 names to me. So now, where did we store these names? In a variable called names.
So if I type in names.
You'll get all the 3 names that you stored. So that's a list of all the names. When you have more than one thing to store, okay, there we go. We have the notebook installed. So here's how you start it. I'll put this icon on desktop so that so you just need to double click on this notebook, Jupyter Notebook, and it will start itself. So now that it shows all these things, don't get confused. What we're going to do is just create a folder on your desktop called Made Python Notebooks. And nope, wrong one. Where did that go? Oh, it opened up here. Okay. So when you want to create a new notebook, what you do is just tap on new and tell it that you're creating a Python notebook. Click on Python 3. Page that doesn't exist. Sorry, it just got messed up a little. We are going to name it Nate's Python Notebook. Okay, so what this lets you do is the same thing that you are doing here. Type in the name and everything. But instead of pressing enter to run the code, you have to press shift and enter. So let's say you typed in names. It's a list of names. Say Nate, Miley. Okay, this screen sharing is a little. And then there was Sean. So you would usually press enter to run the code. In here in the notebooks, what you'll do is press shift and enter. Do you see the shift key and enter key? Press them together. Perfect. And now when you type in names and press shift enter again.
Okay. But I have a question about pressing Shift Enter. Can I press like the Enter on the right? Can I press the left shift?
Any shift is fine. You don't have to. You don't. Like you don't have to press a particular shift key, either left one or the right one. You can press any shift.
And any Enter.
And any enter, the left one or the right one. So what this does is it lets you take notes as well. So here I'll just write so now you know that this codes are for lists in Python. So this is just like your regular notebook where you would type in everything, take notes, and you know, this thing also lets you type in the code here and stores it along with your notes. So it makes it easier for you to read it the next time that you're here.
So let's check for understanding of Nate so far, what you have taught him, the purpose of using the notebook. Let's make sure that review what he has so far you showed him. So if you can ask him some questions regarding the notebook and so far what you have showed him, just to check for his understanding of everything.
So what we're gonna do right now is close the notebook and let Nate open it up so that he remembers, he knows how to do this, and then we can take it from there.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay, so I will go to move this file over here. There we go. Move here. Okay, so no, it's all double click.
And then you wait. And it takes you there. So when you see so many folders, you just remember that we created a folder on desktop. So you select desktop from here. So click on desktop. Oh, no problem. Oops.
I'm just gonna desktop.
And now we put it in Nate Python notebooks. So you open that folder.
Okay.
And there we go. We have the notebook. So you just click on it. When you do, it will load up the notebook and it will load everything that you typed in it before you close it. So you can practice your code in here. You can just, you know, take note and it will still remember it when you come to it next time, when you open it next time. So what would you use this notebook for? Why did we install this notebook?
So that way, if you accidentally press enter, then it won't mess everything up.
That's one of the reasons. Okay. Then?
So that way it's easier to write code.
It's easier to write code, but it also lets you type in the notes that you'd usually type it in. You'd usually write it down in a notebook. So on the other place, ideally where we were coding, hang on, I'll show it to you. So this is where we were typing in the Python code before, right? So this thing does not remember. This thing does not let you type things like this. If I tell it, I am teaching Nate about lists, and press enter, it says invalid syntax. So if I were to design it like this, lists, and I'll tell you that we declared a list. So this Python program won't remember what I actually wanted to, all these things, and once I close it and reopen, it won't remember any of the code that we put in as well. So last time we typed in names in here, does it remember names? It does not. But since this is a notebook, it will remember whatever you typed in and it will show it back to you. So now here, when I erase the names, type names again and press enter. Oh, sorry, you have to press shift enter. So it still remembers even after you closed it. So anything, any code that you type in will get stored here, and you won't have to get worried about remembering it because the notebook will remember everything for you.
It's basically you can copy and paste it.
You can do that too. You can do a lot of stuff with notebooks. Okay, so moving forward. Now what we did was declare a list of names. And the names are like this. But if I tell you that I just want the first name of the list, how would you show it to me? What's the first name in the list? It's Nate, right?
Yeah.
So if I ask you that I don't want to see the whole list. I just want to see the first name that is there. Whenever that happens, what you do is, this is a list. So you type in the list's name, and whatever value you want, you just type in the number, the position of that value. So I asked you for the first name. So might as well type in 1, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we're doing here. But and if I press, go ahead and press shift and enter.
Okay.
So here what we did was, we knew that the whole list is of 3 names, but what we wanted was just the first name. So we told Python that I want you to give me the result that is stored in names, which is this. But not just that. From those names, I just want you to return the first name to me. So why did we type in 0? Because in computers, so when we want something which is on the first position here, the first item, we tell the computer that we want the 0th item that's there in your memory. Because we know that we count from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but computers count from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what is 1 for us is, what is first for us is 0 for the computers. Now this is a note that you took. So now every time you open this notebook, it is going to tell you that you took this note. Now you need to remember this. So now you won't get confused. If I tell you that I want the first element from the list, first name of the list, then how would you return it to me? Not the first. I want the second name that's there in the list. Then what would Nate write?
Names parentheses 0.
Go ahead. No, you can just go ahead and type in. No problem.
Okay.
So what you do is, yes, type in the list's name, and then we do the square brackets. Perfect. And 0. This would give me the first name. If I want the first name that is there in the list, if I want the second name, then what would I write?
Then you would write
Oops,
what's happening.
no problem. Just type in again. We would write names, okay. And you pressed enter. No, I just want the second name that is there in the list.
The second one, we just did the second one. I want like.
The second name in the list is Miley, right? So it should print Miley. What we did here was print the first name, and we printed Nate.
So if I want the second name in the list, I would go like.
Names, Then the parentheses, okay.
And now.
Okay. So second name, we wanted it to print Miley, but it printed Sean. What happened there?
Oh, I need to go like.
Names, okay.
See.
Perfect. So you just need to remember that the counting for the computer starts with 0. Just like our counting starts with 1. So when we want something that is in the third position, we tell the computer that it's in number 2 position. When we want something in the second position, we tell the computer that it's in the first position in the computer memory. We just decrease the number by 1 and ask the computer for the value. So what we do now is let's just declare a variable called friends. And you are going to write the code now. So let's say we want a variable called friends. How would we go ahead and do that? A list of friends.
You would type in friend.
You would type in friends first. Then you would assign it some value. So how would you assign the variable a value? The equal sign. And then we want it to be a list. So how do we declare a list? With square brackets. When Python sees the square brackets, it knows that it's a list. Perfect. And now we start adding the names of a few friends. Oops, you right-clicked?
I don't think that.
Yeah. You're moving fast.
Okay, so then I type in friends parentheses, and then I type in what I want it to be.
So type in a few, maybe few names of your friends, but just make sure to type them in double quotes.
Now then I'll type in
Then we separate two values, two friends by a comma, but inside the list, not outside the list. Okay. Now we write one more friend's name in double quotes.
Oh, okay.
You have to remember the double quotes. Okay, now we separate one more friend with a comma. Let's write 5 names.
Okay, how do you pronounce his name again? I think that's how you pronounce it.
Okay.
I have no idea how we're actually going to pronounce it.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
Then I have
Okay, we have Dylan and one more friend. You forgot the double quotes. Mark. Okay. And then how do we end the list? Perfect. And now we press Shift and Enter to execute the code that we wrote. Okay. So now Python knows that when you type in, oops, my bad. When you type in friends, it's there we go. So now let's try getting Dylan printed on the screen. How would you get Dylan printed on the screen?
zero, 1, 2, 3.
Oops, Shift Enter. Perfect. So what we did here, oops.
You can do that as an input.
Sorry?
I said you could do that as an input.
You definitely can. Let's do that. So let's just say we declare a variable called numbers. We assign it a value by equal sign. And now what we need is an input. So we type in input. And then we write these parentheses sign. So what should this do? When you run it, it will actually ask you to enter something. And now go ahead and enter something. Enter any random number that you want.
8.
8 and press Shift Enter. Okay. So now what we did was we asked for user input and stored it in a variable called numbers. So if I want to see what did the user enter, I want to see what's the value in the variable called numbers. What will I do? I'll just go ahead and type numbers. So you can just go ahead and type numbers.
Okay.
So guys, we have about 5 minutes left into the session. So maybe we could do a quick summary and start wrapping it up.
Shift enter. There we go. It shows whatever value that the user entered. Just like this, we'll just learn one more thing and then we'll summarize what we learned today.
Okay.
Hang on. So now you'll know that after this part, we are starting to learn about taking input from the user. Just give me a second. Okay. So now let's just take one more simple example. Let's just say we want Nate to, oops. We want people to enter the name of their school. So how would you go ahead and do it? Maybe create a variable named school. Go ahead and type it. Create a variable named school. Okay, assign it a value. Okay, and now we want the user input. So we would write input. And the parentheses. No, these are the square brackets. That's for the list. Input is a function, and whenever we're calling a function, we have to type in these parentheses, the ones that show up when we press Shift 9 and Shift 0. The round parentheses, and now you press Shift Enter. See how it asks you for an input? It shows you a place where you can input stuff, type in stuff. Just type in a school name. Perfect. And now if we wanted to show us what the user input, we type in what? The variable name, which in this case is, oh no, that's the user input. That's what the user entered. But we stored it in a variable called school. Perfect. So what we did was ask the user input here and then store it in school. And now whenever we type in school and press enter, every time, see, it'll just give you the value school. The value that the user entered, my bad. All right, to summarize what we learned today. We learned about the notebooks. And from there, you can take over. What else did we learn today?
We learned how to assign variables, how to use Jupyter for notebooks. So we learned how to declare lists, how to ask for inputs.
We learned how to access the names from the values from the list in specific positions. And then we learned how to take the user input the values from the user instead of actually having to type it all in ourselves. Instead, we ask the user to type it for us. And one last thing. So in the next section, these are the two things that we're going to do, and then some more. Just like lists, we'll learn something about dictionaries in Python, and then we'll create a variable that will store all the information about our pet. So if you want, you can try to Google what a dictionary is in Python if you have free time, whenever you get a free time. Otherwise, we are going to start with dictionaries the next time we meet.
Okay.
For now, we click log out. Oh, okay. So when we want to close the notebook, what you do is click log out here. Go ahead and click log out on the top right. I'll show you how to close the notebooks.
Log out.
And then you click on leave this page. When it shows successfully logged out, you can just close the Internet Explorer from top right. It's okay to close all tabs. And then we close this window that says Jupyter Notebook Anaconda 3.
Okay.
So perfect. And that's how we save the data that we had.
So Nate, hey, looks like you learned quite a lot today. So if you were to tell me what was that one exciting thing you learned today, what would that be?
Okay. One thing that I learned today was how to ask for an input. So something exciting.
Awesome. That's really good, Nate. So you're excited for the Python programming so far? Are you enjoying the sessions? I think it's a frozen a little bit, right?
Looks like the internet issue.
Yeah. Cool, no problem. So why don't we go ahead and just end for the session today because we have to jump to the next session. So thanks, Nate. You did a great job. Awesome.
See you next week, Nate.
See you next week, Nate.
All I heard was great. You're lagging. You're frozen.
Yeah, maybe it's my network. But hey, good job, Nate. Thanks for joining today. You did great. All right, take care. Bye-bye now. Prantap, so let's join the next session then. Thanks. See you on the next session. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Bye, Nate.